Hello and welcome to Talking Pharmaceuticals, an interview series brought to you by Making Pharmaceuticals and Distributing Pharmaceuticals. I'm Victoria Emerton, Conference Director for the events which next take place in April 2025. And in the lead up, I'll be joined by experts from UK Pharma to share insights, opinions and practical advice, providing a fresh perspective on key challenges and opportunities in the sector and looking ahead to their involvement in the events. I'm delighted to be joined today by Lewis Corbett, Business Manager and Senior Consultant from Epic. Good morning, Lewis, and thank you very much for your time in talking to me today.
Good morning, Victoria. Very happy to be here. Thank you.
We're delighted to have Epic involved in the event again in April, and you are going to be giving a presentation at the event. Now, the title is called Seeing the Wood for the Trees, How to Prioritise and Maintain Perspective Critical to GMDBP Compliance. What was the inspiration for the topic of your presentation?
Yeah, so during my sort of 4.5 years as an inspector at the MHRA and during my time working with Epic, I've come across many businesses who find themselves with multiple sort of competing priorities, and we at Epic wanted to sort of take the opportunity to recognise that this is an issue and also recognise that it's sometimes really difficult to decide where resources need to be focused, and that potentially uncomfortable decisions on what actions to take or not to take have to be made. We wanted to remind businesses that the quality risk management and risk-based decision making are fundamental parts of good practice, and that the regulators recognise that sometimes businesses can't complete all their continuous improvement activities in the timescales they'd like to, and that the decisions on what they should do or not do need to be based on risk and ultimately link back to protecting patients.
So do you think many companies find themselves in the situations that you describe?
Yeah, we've come across a few companies find themselves, as I say, in that situation, and there are really many different reasons or combinations of reasons. No doubt there's external factors that mean that staffing levels may not ideally be where they need to be and resource can be limited in that way, but more often than not it's because companies are trying to do the right thing. So for example, the best companies out there are sort of focused on continuous improvement, raising change controls, completing really good root cause investigations of deviations and complaints, and generating lots of actions to prevent recurrence, which is fantastic. But all of those actions and all those activities, they're going to need resource, and they generally involve the same personnel who are doing the day-to-day job of making safe and effective medicines or completing all the other tasks that need to be done to remain compliant with regulations. So companies find themselves in a situation where the number of actions they want to complete and the desired timelines sort of outstrip the resources available. And that leads to the development of backlogs and overdues and a cycle of kind of rescheduling and a case-by-case justification for delays and things, which in itself takes an additional resource. So we often find that another reason is that the quality management review process maybe aren't effective, and that the wrong things are being measured, the wrong key performance indicators, or people are just used to living with an undesirable situation and don't recognise that action is needed. So also, senior management aren't always aware of the issues, either through lack of escalation or lack of oversight on their part, and only become aware of issues, say, following a negative inspection, which itself again creates more actions and further competing priorities. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle sometimes.
So a vicious cycle, certainly not something you want to be having in any business. What are some of the consequences you've seen as a result of companies allowing backlogs to develop or not dealing with backlogs effectively?
Yeah, so when I was at the MHRA, deficiencies were definitely given against sort of poorly functioning pharmaceutical quality systems and for not embedding sort of quality risk management principles in decision making. That often resulted in referrals to the compliance management team or the inspection action group at the agency, and that is a threat of action being taken against the license, really, or a person named on the license. So that's a pretty major consequence when your manufacturer's license could be at risk. But I think more than that, it's really easy to underestimate the negative impact of overdues and backlogs on staff morale and sort of your sense of achievement as an individual within a business. It can create a culture where quality is not seen as being important, especially if deviations and actions aren't being acted upon. For example, I'd be pretty miserable if I had a really good sort of continuous improvement idea that I couldn't get to implement, or was wasting my time continually rescheduling the same actions or seeing the same negative metric month on month. So it certainly wouldn't make me feel as a business that we were doing the best for our patients. And, if several people are feeling like that, then it certainly wouldn't help with staff retention and development.
So you mentioned prioritisation. Companies have so many conflicting priorities and limited resources. What advice can you give to help them determine where to focus their efforts?
Yeah, so it's a really tricky one. I think it really helps to begin with sort of back to first principles. If a company has a real clear understanding of its mission, why does that company exist? What are its goals and what are its non-negotiables? Then their efforts can be focused on the activities that best achieve those goals without compromising the non-negotiables. So, for example, a company may decide that patient safety is an absolute non-negotiable. Therefore, that becomes their primary driver for all its risk-based decision making. They may initially focus all their efforts on completing actions, that enhance patient safety before maybe moving on to actions that enhance GMP compliance. So I recognize that's a really simple example, and the priorities are rarely as clear cut. And different companies have different priorities based on a variety of factors, and that those priorities can change over time. And I explore those themes a little bit more in my presentation.
Well, that's the beauty of coming to the event and feeling, hearing you talking about all the things that people need to learn. So top tips are things that people tend to come away with from presentations. What do you think is the one major thing that companies can do today that will help drive improvement? What top tip can you give here and now?
Yeah, and so the presentation, we're going to go through some top tips and some real life examples of things we've come across. But if you just listen to this, one thing that you can definitely do today, definitely works, we've seen it as epic, is basically companies need to realize they've got a problem and stop being in denial, stop living with that bad situation, and just recognize they've got to take some action. Doing nothing is not an option. So anyone within a business, if you're feeling like there's too many actions or the things are overdue and things are a little bit out of control, then anyone within the business can take some proactive steps, such as escalating and highlighting the issue to senior management, and begin maybe to think about their priorities and developing a strategy for your own area of responsibility. If you do nothing, you will be forced to act following your next inspection, and it's much better for you to take those proactive steps than be forced to do something by the regulator.
Absolutely. Being on the front foot's a much more comfortable place to be, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So just a reminder, Lewis's presentation, Seeing the Wood for the Trees, How to Prioritise and Maintain Perspective Critical to GMDP Compliance. You'll be delivering that at Making Pharmaceuticals in April in Coventry. EPIC will be exhibiting on stand number 314. I'm sure you'll be coming with colleagues, so even while you're off presenting, there'll be plenty of people on the stand for anyone to come along and speak to over the 2 days of the event.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. So just to remind everybody watching that attending the exhibition and conference is free. Registration is open at www.makingpharma.com. The programme is also live. We're looking forward to seeing you, Lewis, your colleagues and everybody watching this at the Coventry Building Society Arena on the 29th and 30th of April. Thank you very much for your time today.
No problem. Really looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Victoria.